Hey everybody, this is Kevin Cole, Director of Data Analytics at RotoGrinders, and I'm here to walk you through our new SlateIQ product, this time for Major League Baseball slates. So those who are familiar with what we've done with the NBA, a lot of this is going to look similar, but we brought some new wrinkles to it that'll be specific to MLB contests. Right off the top, I'll say that this is for DraftKings only content, because that's what we have the most robust set of data to work off in our ResultsDB database. So the key here, and the key to the whole structure, is building off of the results and insights that we get from similar slates. So we have thousands of previous slates in our database. What we do is we look at the main slate coming up for that day and for the next day, and we match that slate against all of the previous slates. We find the 25 most similar slates in terms of how many values there are at different positions, in terms of where the chalk is for pitchers and for hitters, and in terms of some of the big macro things like how many games are on the slates and how many different players there are available at different positions. So there's a lot of texture for how we're looking at it. And then once we match those previous slates to the current slate, we take the top 25 and we crunch a bunch of numbers there to give you insights into what may be successful in upcoming slates. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the main table, what we call Slate Texture on here. And as you'll see, the Slate Texture has a bunch of different items. It gives you what we call similar and average. Now, similar in this context is based only on the 25 most similar slates that we've calculated here. The average is looking at all slates of a similar type game count. So a similar number of players, similar number of games that are in total in the slate. And we crunch all the different numbers, you can get an idea of how this particular slate probably fares versus what would be on average. Now we give you the cash line for 50-50s and double-ups. We give you the GPP line, and we're calling this the top 0.1% of entries, what they averaged on here for the two. We look at the win, so the number one ranked entry for GPPs, what the average was there. Obviously, it's a lot higher than what you're seeing in the others, and then what you see in the average. And then below that, we have a bunch of numbers. Now we have stack, ownership, and chalk hit rate. I'll take stack and ownership together. These are proprietary formulas that we came up with, which weight higher numbers for either a great deal of stacking, and bigger stacks get a higher weight here, and then ownership, how high the ownership is of particular players. So we're talking about whether or not the chalkiest pitcher and hitter options are much higher than what you would see in a normal slate. And 50 is the average, so you see it comes in here, and you see this stack in particular that we're and you'll see this slate in particular that we're looking at, stacking is a little bit less used than it was on average, whereas ownership, people are really using higher owned players in these similar slates. As we go down, chalk hit rate, now this is looking at the top 2 pitchers and the top 5 hitters by ownership on all these different slates and how often they're hitting or not, meaning that they're represented in a higher percentage of winning lineups versus what they are for the field. And then as we dig further into, game count, just letting you know the averages are about the same here. Number of players, as you'd expect, is a little bit more here for the similar versus the average. And then as you go down, we have the average salaries for the pitchers for the most expensive pitcher in the second, and then average ownership for the most expensive in the second here for those different things. So that's kind of the main Slate Texture table that really enables us to look at everything from a high macro level. And now the powerful stuff that we're going to dig into here, and I think this will be one of the more powerful things, is team stacking. So we have every single team on the slate here. And when we're thinking about this in terms of team stacking, we're looking at 4 and 5 hitter stacks. So what we've done is for each one of these teams, I'm looking at the total level of ownership of all the different batters, all the different 9 batters that are in the starting lineup. But I'm also looking at the gradation between the highest, who are the chalkiest players on this, who are the lowest, and I'm also looking at the fantasy point distributions there, and I'm taking these particular teams for tonight's slate, I'm matching them against the closest analogous teams from the 25 most similar slates, and that's how I'm crunching some of these numbers. So like I said, the total ownership comes from what's actually happening on tonight's slate. The winner amount, now this is the top 0.1%, how often they had those similar teams in their winning lineups. The field is the same thing, how often the field had those similar teams in winning lineups. And then I have the difference between the two, which is a simple subtraction. And then the leverage, which is the winner divided by the field. And then you're seeing the percentage over the field. So you're seeing here for Boston, for instance, it's going to be the most highly owned in total, all these different batters. I'm estimating that the field is going to have this about 10.3% ownership of 4 or 5 hitter stacks. The winners by the similar slates is about 12.5%, so you're getting a little bit of a difference there, and you're getting leverage there. And like I said, we're calculating this for every single team on the slate. So I think this is going to be pretty powerful in driving insights from these 25 most similar slates. The next one we have is stack type leverage. So this is looking at some very popular stack types here, and these are not going to change. These are going to be the same every single slate. But we're basing this, again, on the 25 most similar slates. We're looking at winners, the top 0.1%, the field, the difference in the leverage for each of these. You'll find most often, and this may be something that's changing, we'll have to look at over time, you'll find most often that in the past, these heavy stacks gave positive leverage and maybe were underused in the past. Now, how people are playing these contests going forward, MLB contests, that may have changed. So like I said, we're going to continue to monitor that closely to see what's happening in 2019. Now, the way you read this, if it's 5-3, that means 5 hitters from one team, 3 from another. 5-1 is 5 from one, 2 from another, and then 1 left there, and so on. So you can see how it builds out between your 8 hitter options and all these different large stacks, 4 and 4, 4, 3 and 1, and so on. Next, we have pitcher leverage. Now, this is another powerful one because we're tying every single pitcher on the slate to their most similar counterparts from the 25 most similar slates. And we're getting, our ownership number that Chris Gimino and the team works on there diligently, and we try to be the best there, and that's a very key component of matching. And then we look at similar pitchers from these slates, and we say, how often were they in winning lineups, and then the leverage that you're seeing in all of these different ones. So again, as we're scrolling down here, you can see we have every single pitcher on the slate, and we think that's a pretty important and valuable tool there. The leverage is calculated by looking at the winner ownership based on similar slates versus what we're projecting that they're going to do, what we're projecting the ownership is going to be, and that's how we get these leverage calculations. So it's a little bit negative when the winner ownership on these similar slates is below what we're projecting. We go down to hitters. We're doing a little bit less with hitters because there's so many different options. So what we're really going to look at is the 10 highest projected ownership hitters here, and you see all these here. And then again, we're doing the same calculation. We're figuring out, based upon the 25 most similar slates and the most similar players within those slates, how often we expect them to be in winning top 0.1% lineups, and then figuring out the leverage based upon what we're projecting for ownership. Further down here, we have some charts for your viewing pleasure, so you can kind of get an idea of looking at this from more of an optic standpoint than the numbers in the tables. So here's a salary spent by position, looking at starting pitchers, and as you scroll down here, you can see this is the the SP1, SP2, and if you look below, it has 3 different categories. These are the winners of similar slates based upon today. This is the field based upon similar slates that we're seeing today, and the field average. So this is just looking at the average that you would find on this particular game count, but not looking specifically at the most similar slate. So again, how often winners have these, what they're spending on average for these players on similar slates, how often, what the field was spending on similar players for these slates, and what on average for the number of game count you're looking at, what the field had been spending. So this is for pitchers. We have the same thing for hitters here. We break out the outfielders by the 3 different positions by salary ranking, and you go through here. Again, you have the winners, the field, and the average for all of these different positions. And the last set of charts here is another way of visualizing salary tiers. So this is salary tiers for starting pitchers, and you can see each one of these tiers. So how often is someone a starting pitcher above 11,000, between 9 and 10, 8 and 9, and so on, all the way down. You can see all these different tiers here. So it gives you an idea of how the texture, and this is just purely based upon winners that we've seen from similar slates. And we go down here and we have the same exact thing, the same breakout for hitters. Again, we have these categories that are a little bit different, obviously, because the hitters don't cost as much. Greater than 6,000, between 5 and 6. I'm sorry, between 5,600 and 6,000. These are $500 breakouts where there were 1,000 above because of the pricing of the different positions. So we're hoping this is going to be a great tool for you to use. You can gain a lot of insights here. We're hoping for also a lot of feedback on what else you may want here. But the most powerful thing that we've done here, and I think you'll see, is we're tying these insights from the millions of entries and thousands of contests and our results to actual teams, actual pitchers, actual hitters to try to get an idea of where you may find leverage in your GPPs for upcoming slates. Thank you so much.